Welcome to Dominate Your Day podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders who want to make a difference in the workplace. We believe each person is unique and has a purpose they can live out every day and make an impact in the world. Here at Dominate Your Day podcast, we hear stories from leaders who have used their unique talents to transform themselves and their companies from the inside out.
Well, I am so excited to welcome all of you to Dominate Your Day Today podcast. And I have a treat for you. I have a really good friend who is now the VP of Marketing of the Americas at North Face, Bethany Evans. And she's here with us today. Hey, Bethany.
Hey, Dana. I'm so happy to chat with you again.
I was so energized that we got to get on each other's calendars. And Bethany is one of those people that I've watched in her career. And I think the thing I love about you, Bethany, is here you are now a VP and you've just moved your way up, but how you are just so gracefully yourself and authentic. And even through all the things you've always been working on improving yourself. And a lot of our listeners are difference makers just like you. And I love how authentically you found your space. And I'd love for you to share with the audience a little bit of your story, kind of how you got started in marketing and kind of how you got to where you are now, because it's kind of a cool story.
Thank you. Well, you've been a huge supporter the whole way. So let me say, I think any credit for where I'm at is thanks to really, really good mentors along the way who've given me that space to be myself. Because as a woman in the corporate world, I think sometimes you feel a lot of pressure to act a certain way or present yourself in a certain way or fit in a box. And it's been interesting to see that opportunity, like you said, to do things in a way that feels authentic to you. So, going back to my story, I started pretty early in social media. And
First ones that I remember just kind of got on it. And yeah. So, how did you get into social media?
it was early, early, early. Oh man, am I dating myself? But way back when social was starting, it was still Facebook, not Meta. Twitter was Twitter, not X. There was still Tumblr, all these platforms that have since changed. But I got into it. I had been working at a company called Buy With Me. That was a very early social buying platform. It was like Groupon and Living Social, if you remember those back in the early 2010s. Yes. So I was working for one of those. I started as a writer and then I was an editor. So we were doing these daily deals and talking about, oh, Chicago, our deal of the day is a massage at this great place. And I worked with a gentleman who was on Twitter. I hadn't been on Twitter, but he said, hey guys, there's this new platform called Twitter. You can be really hyper local. You can do this thing called social listening, which wasn't even a phrase back then. So he said, you could find people in Chicago who said, oh, my back is so sore. Or, oh, I just ran a marathon. And you could actually reply to them from a brand handle saying, did you know we have this cool deal of the day? Check it out. So I started doing a bit of that with my team while I was there. And I loved the interaction because, when you work in a company, especially if you're in corporate or headquarters, sometimes you get away from that actual interaction with the customer. And I realized, oh, wait, social media is this real time feedback loop where you can talk to people and see what they think. And I loved that. So when I got laid off, I was figuring out, I had a young kid at home. I was like, what the heck am I going to do next? And I said, I liked that social media thing. And this was when there were barely any jobs in social media. Most companies had started getting on platforms, but they were outsourcing it to agencies. And they were just starting to realize, oh, this is kind of a big deal. Maybe we should bring it in house, make sure we're, living the brand the right way. We have the right brand voice, the right presence. So I got a social media job for a small company and then was pretty quickly recruited by J.C. Penney because they were in Dallas and they were building out their first social team in-house. So truly, I was just fortunate. It was right place, right time. So I I spent some years at JCPenney doing their social media, but Southwest had always been on my radar. Living in Dallas, you always hear it's the best place to work. So I'd always had my eye on it. And I will tell you, I applied twice and got rejected.
No, I did not know this about the I can't imagine. I can't even imagine.
And it's tough, right? When you feel that rejection. And I knew I was kind of in the final rounds both times, but I didn't get the roles. One was on social business. So there were all these social roles at the time that were being hired for. So the first two I applied for, I didn't get. And then the third one came up and it was social marketing because you remember there was a social center of excellence model. So there was social business and communications, there was social customer care, and then there was social marketing. So I got a call from the recruiter to come in and interview one more time. And Dana, I was so close to just saying no because that rejection was so hard. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go through this again and get my hopes up. But yeah, I don't know if I've told anyone this story, but
No, see now but to me, this is a great story because people think, okay, I'm going to give up. That's it. They don't want me. But no, you stayed. And now look at you. I mean,
it paid off.
it paid off. So there's something in your strengths that kind of kept you going. What do you think that is? Because now you know your Clifton strengths.
Yes. Well, my number one is an achiever, which means I don't like to give up on any goals I set for myself. And I did. I had this goal of I want to work for Southwest. I think it's where I'm supposed to be. So it was funny because that third interview, I came in and I was meeting with Lisa Hinkson and Michael Ann, and they were so kind. And I was so frazzled. It was at the end of a long day. There'd been all this traffic. And I think I was a lot more blunt than I usually am. You know how sometimes you're trying to tell interviewers what you think they want to hear. And I was just completely myself, just laying it out on the table. I was like, I really want this job. Here's why. Here's why I think I would be good, but just very direct. And I guess it worked out. So I finally got it.
That is so funny. I had no idea. I had no idea. And that was at a time at Southwest when we were building the social listening center, right? And they were bringing all that together. And I think that was pretty innovative at the time to have everybody come in one place. And it seemed like you were on the forefront of a lot of that, representing marketing and helping bring social to the next level.
I had some really good partners, as you know, but it was very cool, very transformative. So I did that for a while at Southwest, but I started to realize I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn some new things. And I think when I think about my career advancement, it's not usually about a title, a target title. It's, am I still learning? Am I still growing? And I started to feel that hunger to do that next thing. And
Was that your achiever
maybe my achiever,
and your learner? Did you have a learner in there or
I have
something?
input, but I
Ah,
also have maximizer and arranger. And I think I very much apply maximizer to myself where, it's like, what could I take from good to great? Bethany, what are you working on yourself right now? It's right. It's that oldest child syndrome.
no, but you, that's what I admired because I watched you from afar going, okay, here she's working really hard. She has kids and now she wants to learn more. So what was that next step you took? How did you get to this next phase?
The next step was going back to school. And I'll be very candid. I kind of looked at where I was at and I said, okay, I've worked in a lot of creative roles, brand roles, social roles, but I was starting to see the things that I very much lacked, which was numbers. I didn't understand things like P&Ls or how to work with finance or how to build a good business case. And I saw that being a limiter if I wanted to continue progressing. And it was a very tough decision because, like you said, my husband's a partner at a law firm. I had little kids. I was already working a full time job. I was like, can I do this? Can I go back to school? And I remember meeting with you and several other leaders at Southwest. And I knew I couldn't do it unless I had a really good support system. And everyone was so supportive, both at work and at home. It was a tough thing to ask my husband of, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be in class all day on Saturdays. I'm not really going to have a life for 2 years. Our kids are little. You have a demanding job too. And he was amazing. I have to give him so much credit. He really took a lot of that load for 2 full years. It was a 2-year program to get my MBA. I did the executive program at SMU it was kind of like Fridays and Saturdays. And then, of course, lots of Sunday study sessions, lots of late night study sessions. But that's what got me through it. It wasn't me. It was the people around me who were like, "Yes, we know this is important to you. We're here for you."
Isn't that wonderful? And I think we don't grow by ourselves. We grow in relation to other people. And I think that's so important because I think we all think, oh, we can't ask for help or we can't. And how cool that you reached out and just shared with people what your goal was. And that was the time to do it. Your boys were little, you were growing in your career. If you didn't do it then, when would you do it? Right. So you got your master's. I bet you learned. I remember you learned a lot. I remember you sharing with me. Even when you got to, I think y'all traveled internationally and did a project, did something.
Did. We got to go to Colombia and Peru, which I'd never been to South America. So it just opened my eyes, I think, and kind of broadened my horizons to say, yes, I might sit in marketing, but how do I understand marketing's bigger picture in terms of what can it contribute to the business? And even in terms of, I used to think of marketing in many ways as a cost center versus a revenue driver. And even the language of, hey, this isn't a marketing cost, it's a marketing investment. So, as I started to think about budget planning, it's like, if you need to cut marketing budget, of course you can. But what are you losing by doing that? What were you going to invest in that was actually going to drive either short term revenue or the long term brand health? So it just reframed a lot of my thinking and I think got me out of some boxes that I had been in.
So how did you get from Southwest to North Face? Tell us about that journey.
Yes, this was so cute, actually. So, I grew up in Colorado and I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So, my parents are still here. My 5 younger siblings are still here. But I lived in Dallas for a long time, almost 15 years from after college until my mid 30s. But my kids were getting older. And I'd always thought about moving home to Colorado so that they could grow up more around their cousins and see their aunts and uncles and do a lot of the outdoorsy stuff I did growing up. And my dad saw the announcement that North Face was moving their headquarters from Alameda, California to Colorado. And he had, it was, I think, a Denver Post article that he had scanned in, from the physical version and emailed me as an attachment. And he was like, Bethany, would this be the company? Because he knew I was interested. There had just never been a company locally that had been like, yes, that's the one. The way that Southwest was for me in Dallas. And I will tell you, Dana, it was the hardest professional decision I've ever made because I loved Southwest. I loved the people there. I loved the work, but this was pre-pandemic. So the idea of remote work and moving somewhere, but continuing, it just wasn't really a thing, as you know, back then. So I was like, oh, I need to work for a company that's Colorado based. And I kind of told my dad, I was like, actually, yes, I grew up wearing the North Face. I love this brand. Maybe this is the one. So it was just fortunate timing. In the process of moving, of course, a lot of people who had been there for years and years decided to stay in California. They had family there, they had lives there. So it was this huge glut of openings that you don't usually see at any established company. And they had one that was a good fit for me, leading digital marketing and loyalty. And I had done digital marketing. I hadn't done loyalty. So I was amazed that they entrusted me to tackle it and figure it out with some very smart people, but that's what brought me over.
Wow. And I think there's a couple of things there. Sometimes I love the fact that your dad recruited you. That's so cute. It's so cute. That says so much that now your whole family's there, except you had to bring your husband. Was your husband's family from there too? Or is his family from Texas.
No, but they lapped us. They were living in Dallas, and when we said we were moving, they were like, "Oh, well, we just retired. We'll move there too."
I love it. So you're all there. All of you are there. That's amazing. But I think it's like as we think about building our career, and it's called I call it career stacking. You're taking your different talents and stacking it. So you learn the social, and then you learn the digital, and then oh, now I'm going to learn the loyalty. So there was a lot of as you were building your personal brand, and we talk a lot about building your personal leadership brand and how important that is because you never know when opportunities are going to come up inside your company or outside, but to be the Bethany that is the same Bethany at Southwest, to be that person at North Face. And I think the other thing I heard was how passionate you were about Southwest and it's the values I know and the people. And it sounds like that is what attracted you to North Face. Is that kind of what kind of attracted you as well? Like the values of the company were same as your values?
Yeah, Southwest was amazing. It was the first time I got introduced to the idea of servant leadership, and that if you're a leader, your job is not to tell your team what to do, it's to enable them to do what they need to do. That was a complete reframing of my mindset. And so I knew if I were to leave, I had to go somewhere else that also had a strong culture, great people, a great leadership philosophy, but also the sustainability element. I'll tell you, that was what worried me going back to retail. I'd been in retail at J.C. Penney, and going back to retail, yeah, I was starting to get more environmentally conscious and realizing that, oh, so much clothing ends up in landfills. I don't want to go work for a company that doesn't care about the impact it's having on the earth. So I did a lot of research and I asked a lot of direct questions in the interview process because I wanted to understand, is this lip service or is this truly what the company cares about? And it was very apparent that, is the North Face perfect? No, but they're on a very intentional journey towards more circular design, more renewable sourcing. They truly do care about doing things in a responsible manner, and I've seen that borne out to be true in the 4 years I've been at the company. So I felt good about it from both perspectives. Like as you said, here's a company with corporate values, corporate responsibility and citizenship that I can get behind, and also just a great group of people to work with.
What do you recommend for leaders that are transitioning to new companies like you did? How did you get on your listening tour and you had a team that you was going to be reporting to you. You probably had a lot of different responsibilities. You had to learn a whole new area. What were some of the things that helped you as you were transitioning into this new role?
It's a great question. I think the temptation is to want to jump in and do things right away, right? And it is doing that listening tour first and recognizing that the people you're leading know what they're doing and have a lot of great ideas. And maybe you should just create the space before you decide anything or change anything to find out what are the challenges they've been dealing with, what are the opportunities they see. And I've kind of now, in any new role, given myself this 6-month rule where I'm just like, Bethany, you're an achiever, you're going to want to dive in and just do everything right away, but give yourself 6 months to figure out what's going on, what are the true challenges and opportunities, what do your people need from you, and how can you show up for them the right way. And I am not saying I do that perfectly, I definitely don't, but I think it's that idea of giving yourself some grace.
As you now have grown into this new role as vice president over it's the Americas, is that what it's called for North Face? Tell us about that role and what exciting opportunities you have right now in this new role.
It's exciting because it's brand new. So, for the North Face, for a long time, we've had a team that's been doing marketing for both global and Americas. And Americas for us is US, Canada, and Mexico. And in Europe and in Asia, we've had regional marketing teams. And what we were starting to realize is that there's value to making sure you do have that separate regional team to serve the marketplace, serve the local consumers. So we decided to do a reorg to create a true Americas team, not just for marketing, but also for product, for example. and making sure we're developing the products that the customers here are asking for, the same way that they do in the other regions, and then speaking to those customers in a really hyper personalized, relevant way. So this is new. Ever since I've been at the North Face, I've been working on both global and Americas, and now I'm focusing on Americas. So a lot of that's building out a new team, getting integrated between the three countries. There's so much we can learn from each other, and probably a lot of inefficiencies that we can tackle as well. And my hope is that if we tackle those, where it's okay, before we're all three countries developing their own assets versus you could start doing one set of asset development, one set of campaign development with some nuances and some translations. But I say that because my hope is that if we get more efficient in how we use our resources, we free up time. Because I'm a big believer in that 80-20 rule of, 80% of your job is just what you need to do your job. But you should have that 20% to ideate, work on stretch projects you're excited about, stretch into new areas of the business, maybe think about something that is completely new that we've never done before. So that's my hope for the team is we can free up that 20% eventually.
But and I think that's something, Bethany, that leaders need to hear right now. We need to say it all to ourselves every day, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in a corporate leader, is where is your space in the day? Where are you giving yourself that space? And so I think that's the biggest thing. And you knew this when we were at Southwest. It was bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, right from meeting to meeting. And you couldn't even breathe or eat because you were just going from meeting to meeting. So, how do you create that 20%? What are some tips you have for that you're working on right now?
I am not modeling it well myself.
But it's a goal. It's a goal.
I think that's it. It's part of it is the long
Yeah,
picture.
absolutely.
I know because we're reorging, we're
Right. It's a
hiring.
long
The
tail.
next 6 months may be a little crazy. But I see that light at the end of the tunnel where if we can use these 6 months very efficiently to set up those processes, those right checkpoints, then maybe after Christmas things are going to look great. So I think when I used to think about work life balance, I thought that every day had to be balanced, right? You have to have this much work time, this much family or free time. And I've increasingly realized it goes in waves. You're going to have time when you really need to focus on work and you're not going to have quite as much free time. But then, if you can use that work time to set yourself up for success, you're going to get that free time a little bit later. And that's kind of how I've started to think about it, right or wrong.
I think you also led teams during the pandemic and did a lot. And I know well being is important to you. Through Gallup, we know the 5 areas are physical, financial, social, community, and then be and career purpose. So I remember hearing that you were teaching a class during for your physical. So was that the way for you to get your physical by teaching at Pure Bar? Was it Pure Bar or bar class or something?
Yes, Pure Barre. You might remember I was a ballerina growing up, and I was all the way from age 3 through college. I danced 6 days a week my entire life, which was very structured and also gave me that daily physical movement. And early in the pandemic, it was so crazy, right? It was a crazy time. I I needed that outlet, and there was a Pure Barre right by me, which a lot of former ballerinas go to Pure Barre. There's a lot of elements of ballet in it. It's kind of a mix of ballet, Pilates, and yoga. So there was a studio near me that was doing really good kind of COVID precautions. It was a lot of the classes were actually in the parking garage and we were social distancing, but it was that outlet for me during COVID. And they were hiring some new teachers, and the owner of the studio asked if I'd be interested. And I said, actually, yes, because it kind of took me back to my ballet roots, where it was something completely different from my day to day of what I do in my day job. And I said, I think I would love this. So I went through the training and I taught for about a year. And it's funny, Dana, I thought I would be great at it, and I was not. It was such a learning curve. Yes, I'll just be honest. I think I really struggled at first. It's very choreographed. You're memorizing a 50-minute class. Everything is to the beat of the music. You have lighting cues, musical cues. It was a lot to memorize. And I think it used my brain in a very different way, right? So at first, it was so stressful. And I think I was just so focused on getting it right that I wasn't doing a good job teaching and offering people modifications and focusing on them, which is the whole point. You're not focused on you as the teacher, you're focused on the students. So I eventually got better, not great, but better. And I loved it. But I'll be candid, I overcommitted myself.
And that's the other thing is we talk about just really managing or designing our day and not living by default is really having to say no to some good things. Just, but I love the fact that you tried it and you tested it out and you saw you could do it. Just it sounds like it was just one more thing in your busy work with being a mom and a wife and a leader and all those other things. But what a great outlet. And I think that's one of the things we like to talk about a lot here is where are you finding that time in your day for you? Whether it's teaching a class or taking a class or having that space. We talked about that a minute ago. And usually when we're getting overwhelmed, it's because we're burnt out, but we're also trying to control things we can't control. And we can't control the time sometimes, right? We can't control all the people that need us, but we can control what we do with our day. So I applaud you for taking that experience and using it as a great way to see maybe this is something I can do when I get a little bit more time, but it's not the right time. It is hard to say no to good things, right?
When I decided I needed to step back from teaching, my husband started traveling a lot more again for his job. And my studio owner was so kind. She was like, I get it. She said, it's a season of life. If you want to come back at some time, the door is always open. But for now, I'm just taking. So I take a lot of 5:30 a.m. classes. That gives me the chance to get that workout in before my day starts, before my kids wake up. So that's worked well. I still get that physical outlet, but I don't have as much prep time outside of it.
Well, and I think you know this. We talk about putting the oxygen mask on us first, right? So we can serve all these other people. So I applaud you for getting up and making yourself do that every day or several days a week, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes, but if you do it, you'll feel so much better.
Yes, yes. So as we talk about mindset and well-being, talk to us about what the best advice you got as a leader and that you're using right now as you're going through this change management and building a new team and growing your area. What are some tips that you've gotten from other leaders or mentors that have helped you as you've navigate change, navigate a new frontier, a new pioneer something new?
Great question. I truly do take it back to strengths. When I did StrengthsFinder and was exposed for the first time, again, going back to ballet is about perfection, right? If you have any weakness in anything, whether it's your point or your turnout or your extension, you have to fix it so that you can be perfect. And I'd always had that mentality. And then when I worked with you on strengths, it was this idea that you don't have to be perfect at everything. And why don't you focus on the things you're naturally good at that you can make even better and surround yourself with people who have complementary strengths? And I cannot tell you how much I've taken that to heart and how much it's influenced my mindset ever since. And it truly comes down to the people around you. So I think as long as you have a great team of both people who report to you, your peer set, your leaders, and you figure out how to leverage each other's strengths so that the sum of the parts is greater. That has been just the biggest unlock. Yeah, and even how you interact with people. I remember learning about people's preferred communication styles and that hey, some people are happy to react in the moment. Some people would like a pre-read so that they can digest ahead of time and come prepared with some questions to talk about. So that is something that's been huge for me, realizing, hey, this is a person I can meet with and we can just have an immediate off the cuff discussion. And this is a person who I should make sure I send stuff to a week out so that they are able to work the way that they best work. And I think recognizing that none of those styles are good or bad or better or worse, they're just different. So that's been huge.
Absolutely. And I love that because you're really customizing your approach for each what your people need. And think so many times when you're leading a big group and you've got a lot of in a dynamic department, there's so much going on. You got to move quick sometimes, but knowing what each person needs help you move a little bit quicker. So let's talk about marketing now. What are you seeing as the latest trends and things since you started? I mean, here we are. Like you said, we went from Twitter to X. We have made but you're now seeing kind of just global change in a lot of different ways with marketing. So what do you feel like is the trends that are happening right now in marketing and where your focus is?
It's a great question. It's so funny. I laugh, but I cry. you know, I think, for a while it was what's your crypto and metaverse strategy? And then it was your what's your AI strategy? And then one of my friends tweeted the other day with all the alien stuff. He was like, "Brands, what's your UFO strategy?" And I say that because there's so much noise, right? And I think it's tempting for all of us, including me, to feel like we have to immediately jump on the bright, shiny object. And I think the harder thing is actually to step back and focus on the fundamentals of who is my brand? What are our values? Who is our consumer? And how are we serving them? I think it's really easy as a marketer to get away actually from your consumer and be like, oh, but my friend at this company is doing this, or I saw this cool thing on LinkedIn. I want to do that too. And taking it back to, well, does our consumer want that? Does that serve them? So I actually think that that's been the challenge lately. But also, the thing that excites me as a marketer is how do you tune out the noise and go back to what serves your consumer, because ultimately that's all that matters. If you're not serving them, you're not doing your job. So that's the fun stuff for me. And I think for me right now at the North Face, we've realized we have this amazing athlete team, right? Our athletes actually help test our products, they help develop our products. They literally wear them to do things like climb Everest. And we don't always do the best job bringing that information to our consumers and being like, hey, you can trust this jacket to keep you warm and dry because here's how our athletes actually gave us input. Like this pocket didn't used to work. So they helped us move it here, or the zipper needed to be redone so it could withstand the coldest temperatures of the Arctic. So that's the stuff that, again, you take it back to the basics.
Hmm. And it's funny, probably 10, 15 years ago, it was all about build the product, then go find the customer. Now it's get the customer and build products for the customer, is what we're talking about, right?
So well
So,
said. Yes, exactly.
so as we get ready to close out, do you have a fun story you'd like to share or something that's coming up on in your mind as you think about what you've got to experience in your journey? Whether it be a story that happened, that you want to share that was just such a life moment, or it could be just something that's coming up for you right now that you want to share with the audience.
That's such a good question. I will say I don't have anything prepared.
That's good. I like real organic.
What I'm excited for is our innovations. We have some really sale partners so that they get to see them first. But then how do you bring that to the consumer in a cool way that doesn't feel too technical, but also recognizes that some of our consumers really care about those technical elements? It's this big challenge, and especially on that global stage, we're talking about how do you coordinate across Americas and EMEA and APAC. So that's what I'm excited for. I think going back to what we talked about at the very beginning of just learning new things and tackling new challenges, this is a newer space for me. So that's what I'm excited for.
You know what I hear throughout your message today is this little thread of humanness. You started off talking about social and how you loved that you got to actually talk to the customer. And here we are at the end, and you're talking about what I get to tell the customer and find out from the customer and make sure that they know. So I hear this humanness all the way through.
Yes, and even as something as silly as it may sound, but we just opened up a new store at Park Meadows Mall, which is like 5 minutes from my house here in Denver. And my favorite thing, Dana, is to just go to the store and ask the store manager, "What are you hearing from customers?" Or just kind of standing around, not being too creepy, but seeing what are they gravitating towards? Where are they shopping? Where are they spending their time? It's that piece that I just don't think you can get any other way.
Well, you care so deeply for others, and you also work hard on yourself, which is a blessing. And then you also take time to be with your family and friends. And I think that's the key. That's the key is how do you there's I guess the word balance is not popular anymore, but how do you navigate all that? And you seem there's not a as you talked about with ballet, we can't be perfect. It's not perfect. And we talked about that with strengths, right? Every day's a different day, but we can navigate it each day and get energy from using our strengths to help us be the best. So, Bethany, this has been so invigorating. I know our listeners will love hearing your message. And I just really appreciate you being here today and being with us, sharing your wisdom, and sharing your passion for the customer and really making sure the customer knows what you need, as well as building your internal personal brand. I love what you've done with that. So, congratulations on your new role. And I can't wait to continue to watch and see what you're going to do next.
Thank you. And thank you for making this space. I think seeing what you've created too as an entrepreneur and making this space for people like me to just come talk and share with each other has been amazing. So I'm so happy for you too.
You have been listening to Dominate Your Day podcast. If you're ready to transform your life and workplace from the inside out, go to danawilliamsco.com and set up a discovery call. We would love to connect with you and equip you with some helpful resources. Thank you for listening today, and please take a moment to subscribe to Dominate Your Day wherever you listen.